Hi, I'm Margaret and welcome to Garden School. We are right smack dab in the middle of summer right now, and there are a lot of things that can be done and should be done in the garden. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about those different tasks and perhaps how to prioritize them, because I don't know, I've found somehow that I am involved in gardening in several different locations, and it is becoming a trick to manage the different things that need to be done at those locations, or perhaps the things that I want to be done. So there's a difference between what I want to be done and what really should be done. So we're going to talk about that today.
Well, for me, I think watering is the primary thing to do at this time of year. And you want to pay special attention to things in containers. Make sure they get adequate water, and sometimes, and depending on the container, the size of the container and the location, and the plant, it might be twice a day. But just keep a watch of those containers, especially when we're talking about watering. So a soaker hose is another way to get the water right down to where you want it, where it will be accessible to the roots of the plant. Also, here you can see that I've got gunny sacks in the pathways here between these rows, and this has really served to help reduce the amount of weeds a lot. Now, of course, you're still going to find some special guys that you want to get out of the way. There will always be those. But to hit it really strong at first, get the weeds out of there that have emerged, and then do your best to manage the ones that want to come up later. It's not the primary thing to do at this point. Watering would be the first. Another great way of watering is to use a drip system. And in these raised beds, we've got a drip system that's going right along the places where the seeds were planted, so that the plants are getting really adequate water, and it's really good. For me, at this time of the year, watering is probably the number one priority. And so I'm always going to try to water, if possible, as close to the ground, to the root area as possible. That is where the water is going to do the most good. Now, I've also have mulch, straw mulch down here, which will keep the moisture, will hold moisture in and keep the evaporation down a little bit. And then here I have a couple of little zucchini plants that I had at home that have gone into a spot where a dahlia didn't show up. So I'm going to make sure that that has got enough water as I've just transplanted it. Probably going to be okay if I keep watching the water.
So try and do your watering either at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. That's best for the plants. Some plants do not respond well if they get water during the heat of the day, and you might see some burning or scorching. I've noticed that on a couple hydrangeas that got splashed with some water and then the sun hit them. But early and late is best as far as getting water into the plant. Now, you may have to do like a overhead sprinkler kind of situation. Whatever your plan is for that, just go ahead and get water to the plants. That's probably the number one thing to do at this time of year.
There seems to be plenty to harvest at this time of year, and that's one thing we want to keep on top of before things get out of hand. So I would say squash and even beans are one that we really want to monitor, especially these things, so that they don't get too large and not become as desirable. And also it helps the plant too when you pick these fruits as they are being produced. then the plant has more energy to go into more food production and fruit production. My friends here went on vacation for a few days, and perhaps they forgot about this cucumber that was in their patch. That really should have been harvested. And I have a feeling that they also forgot about the zucchinis that are in here. Some of them are these great doorstops. So when it comes to deadheading, we just want to remove the spent flower so that the plant then has more energy to spend on producing new flowers. While you're doing your watering and your harvesting and your deadheading, you may notice that there are some pests or some diseases popping up that you want to address. Now, what I've got here is a couple of blueberry bushes, and I know that the birds are going to hit those very, very soon. So I am protecting them with some ream cloth just to keep the birds from getting everything. And then another thing is sometimes a plant will be in a situation where there is too much heat for a certain period of the summer. Now in my greenhouse I've got tomatoes in there, and I put a shade cloth on so that when we had the very intense heat a little bit earlier, and we may get some more, that the temperature would really be better for those plants inside the greenhouse. So I would say watering's primary, and then after that it's probably harvesting. After that you can do deadheading and weeding, and then maybe, I don't know how much you want to be fertilizing at this time of year. Perhaps if you're transplanting something, perhaps something to avoid the transplant shock. But I would say watering, harvesting, and then deadheading and weeding. The deadheading, it will also help a plant with its production and continued production. So those are a few things to think about and prioritize for your particular situation where you are at the middle of summer. The important things are water, harvesting, deadheading, weeding, and then protection from pests and predators and disease. So think about those things, and perhaps where you are, you don't need to worry so much about the water so much, but you've got to deal with some pests. Go ahead and figure that out for your situation. Keep that in mind. But there's one other thing that is very important to do in our garden, and that is to enjoy it. So I want to challenge you, as I'm challenging myself, to sit down for a couple minutes and enjoy the sights and the sounds that you are experiencing in your garden. You know, even if we couldn't go back out to our garden tomorrow or the next day or the day after that because of some situation, we can still be good gardeners in our minds and think about and enjoy what we can. It's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be work to do, and there's always going to be more to learn in the garden. Bye-bye.